we've got a 20-year veteran in the real estate business. He might get into his story, tell us he's been in it for a little bit longer, but we've got Greg Raymer here, and he is going to give us a wealth of knowledge and his experience, real estate business, being a real estate broker and agent, and everything that he's been doing on his end. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get Greg introduced here. Greg, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and some of the things that you got going on?
Yeah, appreciate it, James. You and Patrick both are looking pretty good today. You got your hair looking good. Patrick's got the nice looking hat going. So I don't know if I can keep up with you guys. Look at that. Got the surprise dome under there. But yeah, thank you guys for having me on. I'm here in Bowling Green, Kentucky. We're in south central part of the state, about an hour north of Nashville. Anybody travels through the south going up and down I-65 from Chicago through Louisville, you'll come through Bowling Green on your way to Nashville and point south down to Alabama. So that's where we hang.
Perfect.
Very nice.
So tell us a little bit about your business. Like, what kind of things do you got in the works right now? Because I know you're a pretty busy guy and you've got a lot of irons in the fire. So tell us, a little bit about your business.
Well, I'm a real estate broker. I was just telling you guys before we jumped on, been in it 20 years, just actually went and got my 20-year pin today at our local association. So on the brokerage side, I have a Next Home franchise here in Bowling Green. Next Home is just like Remax or Colwell, whatever. They're franchise. They're relatively new, about 8 years old, out of California. Fastest growing franchise out there right now. So been with him about 7 years, and got on the investment side, we have an outfit we formed called USA House Partners. So we're doing investment stuff on that side. And I've been a REO broker and since day one, being in the business, got in 02, obviously, with the 20 years, and kind of got in right before the economy hit the skids in 08. So I got into a niche called, REO listings, which is foreclosure listings for banks. REO, people not familiar with that, it just stands for real estate owned. That's a term that banks use where they acquire back the property in the process of foreclosure. So it's now in their books under the real estate owned section, I guess. So been in that since day one, and kind of got me into investing and knowing that side of the business.
Perfect. Yeah, before we get more into the REO aspect of your business and what you do, I'm a little curious as to, how you got into Next Homes and what you were doing before that. Were you with another big brokerage, another big house, or, were you with a smaller shop, or how did you get to, become a broker of your own franchised real estate brokerage?
Well, going back to the beginning of time, I was a college baseball player back in the day. Ended up getting drafted. I was a pitcher, played 5 years of minor league ball for the Padres and Expos, and graduated drafted after my junior year, then went and ended up hurting my arm, got out and got a real life and got a real job with wife and kids and everything. And then went back to school, finished my degree, got in business degree, and got out and got into insurance initially. So, and then I stayed in that for about 10 years and decided, like a lot of people do at some point, you say, do I want to keep working for a check, or I want to go out on my own and, roll the dice and see what happens. So one of my cousins was actually in the business here locally in Bowling Green, was Century 21. We moved back into town in Bowling Green from another town up the road, and he was looking for a house for us. And I started picking his brain on the, what it was like selling and so forth, listing property. And he kind of whetted my appetite, so to speak, and I went and got my license, got in it myself. So I've been with Keller Williams, I've been with Colwell, I've been with Century 21, and then Next Home came along, and I bought the franchise there, and it's been since that way since 2016. So it's been a good deal with them. They're a great company.
Great. So how many agents do you have in your franchise brokerage?
Right now we have 20, so I guess we're considered like a mid-size type brokerage. But a lot of one good thing that I liked about this, that drew me to them, was they don't require you to have a brick and mortar office, and that was important to me. I was kind of, COVID kind of showed us that we don't need a brick and mortar to do business. You can, if you got a cell phone and a laptop, you can do it, and internet, you can do business from anywhere. So, and I always thought that from day one. I said, why are we going to? These brokers pay all this money for an office and nobody ever goes to it. It's like the only guys that are there are the guys drinking coffee, not selling anything. So if you're hanging out there, you're not doing a whole lot. So I was always on the road and looking at foreclosures. And part of that business is you got to do like little mini appraisals called broker price opinions. The banks are always wanting to know the present value. And so we're always busy doing going to see that, take a few drive-by pictures and pull some comps and get those values for them, kind of ballpark it for them. So that kept me busy a lot.
Sounds like it. Sounds like it. And with like nowadays, you can just go to the title company or the real estate attorney that's doing the closing and close your deal there. Like you don't actually have to have an office, like you said.
No, absolutely. That's another part of it. I mean, you go to the house to show the house. You have electronic signature like DocuSign on the, you don't have to meet with anybody to sign anything anymore. You just email it to them as long as they got an email. And it makes it so much more handy on your time efficiency and your gas and trouble and headache and effort to go try to meet with people. It's just, you can do a Zoom call like we're doing right now, talk to folks. You can do electronic signatures. Then of course you do your closings at the attorney's office. They're the ones making the really big money, so they can afford that rent. So that's the way we look at it.
Yeah,
that's right. James knows all about that.
Yeah, for sure. And I work for Remax myself, and I do find when I've got nothing to do, I'll go to the office just to hang out and drink some coffee, like you said. Just I work with some agents and see what they're got going on. But there is something to be said about like talking with other agents and see what kind of transactions they've got going on and what their pulse on the market is, because everyone's got their niches. Maybe people are doing more high-end retail or just regular retail or REO or working with investors. So there's a lot of different aspects there.
Absolutely. Humans are social animals. They got to go sit and talk to each other. It's always best to do it in person, but we just have that convenience nowadays of Zoom and electronic signatures where we don't have to do that. And I don't mean to demean anybody that's drinking coffee at the real estate office, because, once you have that closing or you have that showing and you kind of knock off for the day, it's good to kick back at the end of the day and catch up with everybody, see what's happening. Where's the hot new listing in town, or funny story somebody's got on working with a buyer that's crazy or whatever. It's always those drama stories, just like any aspect in life, whether it's just everyday blue collar or teaching or health or law or whatever. You got crazy folks you work with every once in a while that invite those colorful stories.
Yeah, I know at my brokerage we got Fireball Fridays, the cinnamon whiskey or whatever. So I'd feel bad partaking in that by myself at home for sure. So it's good to go to the office for that.
I might have to make a road trip over in the Carolinas to see what's going on with that. That sounds like fun. I'm gonna steal your idea.
More than welcome. Open invitation. So I know you mentioned that you're involved with some REO. So why don't you break down, what that is at a very basic level and help our listeners understand, like, what is REO and what was your role, or what is your role in that process for those kind of transactions?
Well, basically, REO again is a foreclosure property. That's what everybody knows them as. Everybody wants to buy a foreclosure because you're going to get a good deal, and a lot of times you do. But the theme I've seen, and we laugh about this. My youngest son Connor works with me in the business, and we will talk about consistent themes we see with people that get foreclosed on here in Kentucky. That seems like they always spend money on stuff, accessories, and stuff, except they forget to make their house payment. They'll have a boat sitting out there. They'll have an above ground pool sitting out there. They'll have a detached garage or shop they built and, invest all this money, or a big deck or something like that. And they didn't make their house payment. So when we go in and, they miss enough payments, the banks will eventually hire an attorney and go in there and foreclose on them. And then, my job, once I get an email saying, hey, we have a new listing at 100 Main Street, Bowling Green, we need you to drive by and see if there is folks still living there. And if there's not, go ahead and try to look in the window, see if you can gain access, get us some pictures, see what the status is, how rough it is and where it is along the lines of, what we need to do to it. So after that, if it's occupied, they'll do sometimes what they call like a cash for keys offer. They'll have me knock on the door and say, hey, I'm representing the bank here. What's your situation? This place has been foreclosed on, right? So they always know it. They may play dumb every once in a while, but they'll say, yeah, I just, I've been sending my payment and I never got it. I've heard that 100 times. And then they'll say, we just need another week to find a place. I said, all right, I'll relay that to the bank. I'm just the messenger here, so don't get mad at me. I'm here to give you some, advice on where the bank is and what they're thinking. So I take that message back and they'll say, you know, we've already been working with these folks by letter before we ever brought you on. So we're just going to go ahead and kick them out and have the sheriff serve them. Or if they feel like, you know, they haven't been communicating with them, they'll give them a chance and they'll say, all right, let's offer them $1,000 to go ahead and get out in the next 10 days. And usually there's some strings that come attached to that cash for keys offer. They want to say, all right, they got to clean the place out and mow the yard before they leave. Otherwise, we'll have to hire somebody ourselves and pay twice that, probably, or who knows, or have attorney's fees. So it's kind of they want to make it a win-win for the occupant. Hey, we're sympathizing with you. We're going to give you some money to relocate. But, you know, if we give you some money, let's leave the place in decent shape so we don't have to come in there and spend a whole lot more money on it. And so most times if the people are smart, and I say, look, you can either take this money and put it to something, or the sheriff's going to come serve you and you're going to get zero in your pocket. So if you know, just go ahead and take the money. If it was me, I'm just being honest with you here. So most of them do take it, and they don't always get those cash for keys offers. It's probably about a 50-50 deal, just depending on the situation. So it's kind of interesting. If they don't, you know, you have those that don't ever answer the letter. They don't call you. They won't return your call. They won't answer the door. You can see somebody's there. You go knock on the door. You hear like a little mice in there rough shuffling around. You know, there's a dog in there barking. It's pretty obvious somebody's living there, but they never answer the door. So, you know, it just depends on the situation that you encounter. You just relay it back to the bank and go from there. But it gets interesting when the sheriff, you get to go there with the sheriff and do what's called a set out. And the sheriff will knock on the door, and if they don't answer with the sheriff, we just go ahead and have the locksmith drill the lock and open the door that way. And the sheriff's sitting there with his hand on his gun in case something happens. And a lot of times when they see his car out there, they know it's real and they better answer the door and be respectful. So we've had a lot of those where you just you come in there and say, oh, can you give me a few more days? No, this is the last day. The judge has signed this order. It's time for you to get your stuff out right now. Or I usually have to take a crew with me, and we'll go in there and start setting their stuff out at the curb on the sidewalk. So, and then we change the locks after we get out, and the sheriff will sit there the whole time, kind of supervise and make sure things stay kosher.
Yeah, that's basically the same as an eviction if someone was renting from you. It's that's their house and they haven't been paying the mortgage.
Yep, it's the same exact procedure, except they're a tenant as opposed to a former owner. So they still have those rights, but the clock's run out. Now it's time to transition over to being homeless or wherever they want to go. You ain't got to, I don't care where you got to go, but you ain't gonna stay here. It's like that old closing time phrase that you use at the bar.
Exactly. Now, I have a question. So how does someone like myself or an investor listening out there get on to these bank foreclosure lists? Because that bank or that mortgage company, they have X amount of properties that are theirs, and a lot of the times they'll have this stuff where, they might push it out to some people first before it goes on the open market.
Right.
Or you at least have the ability to possibly buy it. I'm sure they're not as prevalent as they were when there was more REOs available, but how does someone go about getting on a list like that?
Well, the general public always has the option that usually it's the local, what they call a master commissioner in each county, which is usually a lawyer that's appointed in that general county seat, wherever town you're in, and they'll have a list that comes through every once in a while, and they'll have an auction there at the courthouse, either on the courthouse steps or inside the courthouse in one of the chambers. And occasionally they will go to the property if it's a special property, like a commercial property or something, so people can see it. But most of the time, the residential stuff, they'll just take some pictures and they'll flash them on the board there in the courthouse chambers, and they have local investors come in there and just you bid on it. And you got to have pretty much, you got to present a letter of credit to the master commissioner there before you're allowed to bid. Not just anybody can just stumble in off the street and start bidding. So there's a procedure set up, like a lot of stuff like that. So as far as on the realtor side, like a broker like myself, there's plenty of lists that you can buy or subscribe to. Just like anything in life, just Google REO listing broker bank lists and stuff like that, and you can get them for free. You can pay dollars. There are plenty of shysters out there that want to pay you, charge you for a list that you can go online and do 5 minutes worth of work, get for free. But that's basically, you just get your name on the list and kind of send them a resume and go from there. So that's how I did it. You start out kind of doing a little grunt work, like doing the BPOs. You get usually paid relatively small amount, 50, 100, 150 bucks to drive by, take some pictures, and takes about 30, 45 minutes to pull some comps and input the forms online. So when I first got in the business 20 years ago, the BPOs were kind of like a lot of stuff. The MLS books were still printed in paper, and they didn't have all the computerized online stuff. And you just, sometimes you had to either handwrite or type out these things and fax them to them rather than, just type it in online and hit a button and send it. So everything's evolved over time. So it's gotten a lot easier, quicker, and more efficient now with everything.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing real estate, 20 years ago before having my phone with me to follow directions everywhere. I'd be totally lost, let alone like finding out what's listed right away and all the intricacies there. But related to your REO, what kind of banks are you working with? Are you working with small credit union institutions, local banks? Are you working with like the Wells Fargo, Bank of America type of institutions?
Most of the stuff I'm doing is the big time stuff. You can do it two ways. Most of the guys like me, most banks, when you're doing listings as a broker, you're either working directly with the bank or you're working with a third-party company that represents a lot of different banks. And it used to be I worked directly with the bank, and now it's shifting as time has gone by that you're working with these third-party companies. And there are local foreclosures, like locally owned banks here in your neighborhood. They have foreclosures just as well, but it's been hard to get on their list. It seems like they've always got their hand-picked local guy that's a good old boy from the country club, or they know them from school or whatever type stuff, and they'll get that inside track on taking that. Or they'll just know an investor locally, the banker does themselves, and just sell it directly to the investor. So
that's the guy I want to be.
There you go.
That's the guy I want to be.
It's just, if you want to get on that list, if you know some local bankers, just say, hey, if y'all get any foreclosures, I'm a cash buyer. Just keep me in mind. I'll pay you. It won't be, I'll just take it as is. You let me know the address and I'll drive by and say yes or no. So, but the stuff I do is mostly institutionalized investors that are buying and selling big portfolios of 10 or 100 or 1,000 houses, and they'll plop a few of them. They have a few of them here in Bowling Green, Kentucky, so they'll have a couple and they'll give them to me. They'll have a couple in Nashville. They have a couple in Louisville. They have a couple in North Carolina, and they're just spread out everywhere. So the local REO brokers are normally the ones on the list that get the first email they and say, hey, we got this and this at these locations. We need you to go by and do an occupancy check. Let us know what's going on with the house and snap some pictures so we know what it looks like and what shape it's in.
That's interesting. What's the current state of the REO market? I mean, are you getting any of these now? Have you seen an uptick? I mean, was COVID really a problem? Like, let us know about that.
Yeah, I mean, COVID kind of put excuse me, put the stop on everything with the moratoriums, with the no more evictions, no more foreclosures. And we really haven't pulled out of it yet. At least I haven't. And the other brokers I talked to, they said that's kind of just been dead. Everything's just, I don't know if the pipeline with all the listings in it's clogged up or constipated. They can't get things flowing again, or what's going on with the economy. But part of the theory I have too is that with such a housing shortage like it is, and as low as the interest rates were the last few years, people are hanging on to them, and they're a whole lot more forgiving. And the process, if you're going to get foreclosed on, number one, it's taking a whole lot longer because all this healthy at home money, or whatever you call it, the rent money they've been giving them free for the last year or two, that's drug things out. And, it's just taking everything longer. But I think there's plenty of them still in the pipeline. It's just when will we see it? Right now, normally I'll keep, just a medium-sized town like I am, I would normally keep a handful of listings, 4, 6, 8 listings and I got one right now. So it's just the broker price opinions have dried up. So it's an interesting time right now. If you're in if you're in this market and that's your only niche, you're kind of sweating. You're saying, where is all the business gone, man? You know, it's out there. You just don't know. Reading all the stuff online, it's just it's going to take a lot longer on everything that it ever has.
Well, I guess what could be contributing to that is just the massive run up in appreciation in prices we've seen pretty much across the country. A lot of people just aren't underwater with their mortgages, so they might not be looking at the trade-off of saying, like, if I sell this place, I owe the bank money anyway, so I might as well just stop making my mortgage payments. So
right. Yeah, that's saved a lot of people, really has. The values are good. And a lot of the stuff back in 08 was people getting mortgages, should have never got them in the first place. I think that was a huge part of it. Plus the market went way down and they were underwater, like you said. It was those two factors right there was probably 80% of it. So you don't have those right now for the most part.
And also, I think the lending conditions are entirely different too. I wasn't buying houses in 2006, but from what I understand of talking to people who had been purchasing at that time, if you had a heartbeat, you could get a loan, and that's definitely not the case now. The criteria for getting a loan are definitely more strict, if not just reasonable to begin with. So it's definitely a different market.
Some of my buddies that do mortgage lending here local talked about, they've been in it for a long time, and they said back then we didn't even have to be licensed, I don't think. And after 08, they really cracked down on appraisals and mortgage brokers. That was the two things. And the mortgage brokers actually had to go take a test, a nationwide test after that, because I guess that it was the standards were so lax, and there wasn't the guidelines and security precautions and the vetting that they did with buyers that they're doing now. So that was a consequence of being fast and loose and what they call those no doc loans. You didn't have any documentation. You just said, yeah, I make this and I work here, and okay, you got a loan.
Yes, as everybody knows nowadays, they pour through all of your financial statements with a fine-tooth comb. So
yeah. And I think in the past 14 years since 08, like everything else, the technology's gotten better. You can pull somebody's background, you can pull their credit, you can do a whole lot more vetting, a whole lot better than you used to be able to.
Right.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. So we've got all the REO stuff. So, for someone that's been in the business for a while, do you invest yourself? I know you mentioned USA Home Partners and another kind of investment thing. So talk to us a little bit about, your real estate career outside of the brokerage and doing the REO stuff.
Yeah, our investment side is USA House Partners. We invest, we wholesale, we give cash offers for homes, people that are needing those, like a lot of investors do. The niche that I've kind of gotten into, just kind of accidentally, somewhat on purpose, is mobile home niche, investing in mobile homes. And I wrote down some reasons here on that. And, it's kind of interesting. Your first reflex when you think about mobile homes is say, no, those are trash and they depreciate like cars and this and that. But, the things that I've found is that the number one thing with inflation going on, all the prices keep going up. The entry level homes are almost out of reach for a lot of people now. And mobile homes are still affordable. Most of the units you can get are less than $100,000. They're usually, the floor plans are open floor plans, are more modern. I have some people, sometimes I'll have a stick built house and I have a mobile home, a newer mobile home, and maybe an older stick built, but it's more solid. And I said, no, I like the mobile home. It's more energy efficient. It's got a better floor plan. It's got the garden tub. It's got separate shower and the whole 9 yards. So there's just a lot of good things that people don't think about normally. Other things are, usually I've read and I've seen it myself, the maintenance costs, when you compare apples to apples on a single family home, they're usually less on a mobile home as far as annual costs go. So just a lot of positives. There, one thing I didn't think about, and I wrote it down here, is that because people don't really like mobile homes, the instant thought they have is, I don't want to mess with that. There's less competition. You got to market more to yourself when the people they got that bad stigma of mobile homes, so they're out there. You can pay cash for them. There's no financing. There's no monthly payments you got to worry about. So when you can take the same amount of money and buy more units. Your risk is spread out more. You're not all just invested in one fourplex or one sixplex or whatever. So you think about it along those lines. Like we had a year ago, December, we had a tornado came through here in Bowling Green, really, really bad storm. The worst one we've ever had, killed like 17 people. And we had a lot of houses destroyed. And I had an investor buddy of mine, he invested in mobile homes too. He said, yeah, I'm glad I didn't have some of those where it went through on ground zero. They wiped out a bunch of sixplexes and eightplexes. I had my mobile homes out in the country spread out. I didn't have a single one that was damaged. And that was a perfect example that came to mind what I was thinking of. You kind of like the risk management theory. You spread your risk out so you don't have all your money in one basket, so to speak.
So one thing that I could be pretty certain of is that anybody who's afraid of investing in this particular asset class probably calls it a trailer park, whereas you're calling it a mobile home community. And I think that mindset's important because I do see mobile homes as serving a very vital function for the housing community because a lot of elderly people make these communities home. It's a great starting off place for people who live who are blue collar or just starting out their lives. So it's not always a detrimental, negative place that needs to serve to have this negative connotation. But one thing that I do really like about mobile homes is they're not building any more of them. Like communities and cities are just replete with this not my backyard mentality, and they think of them as trailer parks. So honestly, I don't know when the last time I've ever recognized a mobile home community being constructed. They're just older investment assets. So do you have an appreciation for that at all? Like, are they actually building any mobile home communities where you're looking to invest, or is it all kind of mom and pop owner situations where they've owned these places for like 30 years?
Yeah, it's a good point. Basically, we're in a rural area here in Kentucky and Bowling Green, 75,000. We're a decent sized town, but we're surrounded with a lot of rural areas. So what you see is, I was telling you guys before we started, I'm from Kentucky. I get stereotyped that I don't wear shoes and I live in a mobile home. Probably I don't brush my teeth or whatever. So yeah, we have more mobile homes probably in our state per capita than a lot of states do, because they have a tendency to be set up in remote rural areas. A lot of times they have a little bit of ground that goes with them. But yeah, I mean, it's we do have some mobile homes that are established. Most of them are mom and pop deals. But yeah, I'm agreeing with you 100%. They serve a purpose, especially some of the nicer ones that have been here a long time and closer to town. They're usually very well kept. They're convenient to all the amenities here locally. So there's a lot of appeal. You can own your home and pay $250 a month on your lot rent or whatever you do, and they take care of everything else. They keep it maintained. The garbage comes in as part of it. Your water comes in as part of the lot fee or whatever. So a lot of good things in that regard. But I guess that's really part of the reason that I got into it, because the availability of them. I mean, there are more than average of them around here, and I saw more. And it seems like, as part of the REO niche, that really kind of got me going with them. They are foreclosed on probably as an asset class a little higher percentage wise more often than your regular stick built home, because people maybe they know that they're getting that maybe they're losing value. When the one thing I would advise against is don't buy a new one, because they are like cars in that certain aspect that they will depreciate, take that big hit the first couple of years. But I always tell my two sons, I say, don't buy a new car. Let somebody else take that depreciation hit first couple of years, and then go out and find a good one that's a little under market value. And that's where you get your best value. And I do the same thing on mobile homes. Don't buy new ones, but look for that value they've been broken in for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years, and get a good buy on those. And that's where you kind of the sweet spot.
They also have like, call them manufactured housing, not modular or anything like that. That I've seen, like, there's some really, really nice, mobile homes or manufactured housing, like you said, brand new, that you can get, and you can buy a piece of land and put something like that on, or have a few on a piece of land that you can't do in other parts of the country. When you say mom and pop, like someone like me could have a couple acres and put 4 or 5 of these things on there, and then I have a small mobile home community, or manufactured housing community. And you can't do stuff like that up here. Like, I've looked, and like you said, these double, triple wide open floor plans, everything looks nice. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us have been on, YouTube and seen people do the walkthroughs, and you're like, holy crap, like these are really nice.
Yeah.
I've looked into that, but where I'm at, I can't go buy an acre and divide it into a fifth of an acres, where I could do that and build a stick built house. I couldn't put, a $200,000 really nice mobile home on there with a well or whatever. They would not allow that. Even though it would look really nice, it would serve a purpose and have great rents and all of that. You can't do that in certain places. So in the places that you can, I really, really see the benefit. Like you're saying, providing more square footage, larger properties, giving people some privacy, and having the park take care of a lot of that nuisance stuff, the maintenance, the trash, all of that. So you said you do a little wholesaling. Are you flipping these mobile homes, or are you buying them and then renting them out? Like, what's the plan with the USA House Partners and that kind of investment strategy?
Yeah, we're doing a little bit of everything. I like variety. It's the spice of life. I like we've got a couple right now my son and I are partnering on, and we bought it in the, I forget, 25, 35 range. You spend about $5,000 on it, get it paint, take out the carpet, put some floor covering in there. And we're going to flip it and probably list it for $99,500. So, we're looking at least doubling our money if we're good, maybe even tripling our money if we got a real good buy on it and got a hungry buyer. But sometimes I like to do like a 2-year rent to own type deal, get a healthy down payment, let them rent it for a couple of years, let some of the payment go toward pay down the principal, and then let them get financing after 2 years at an elevated price. And they get to kind of test drive that house and see if they like it or not. So I've done a few of those. Yeah, but you're going to see a push talking about the nicer stuff with the average beginning home buyer prices keep getting higher and higher and getting out of reach. You're going to see the FHA starting to push lenders to have more creative financing to be able to finance these homes better. That's a lot of the problem a lot of times, especially on the older stuff. If it's not on permanent foundation, you almost forget it. But if it's on permanent foundation, these places are just like a regular ranch built home, ranch style home. And there's a lot of good that can be coming of that. And you'll see a push, I think, with relaxing some of the FHA government standards on financing them and get them done so people can buy them at a lower buy-in rate than they would be on a stick built house. It's like 25-50% more.
So how are you finding these mobile homes though? Like what is your process for identifying what potentially might be a really good deal?
Well, you can go depending on what we call the PVA, property valuation, what people call tax assessor. You go on the site and look on there, and some places will have it where they flag those as manufactured homes, and you can pull them up under that category or classification, and just do a download spreadsheet and start you a postcard mailing campaign to these folks and say, hey, we're cash buyers. If you reach the point where you're ready to sell and you want a quick check in your pocket, give us a call. We're happy to come out and talk to you and try to help you in that regard. So you can do that. Like I said, with our REO business, we'll get a few of those coming in as listings. And a lot of times they'll be rough and people will shy away from them. Especially if they're way out in the country. It's just sometimes you can look at that as a resource. Once you develop reputation of buying these. Obviously, it's like anything else. People kind of, the word travels a little bit. So word of mouth helps a lot. But the sky's the limit on what you can do on your imagination, creativity, and the marketing you put in. It's not too tough if you go think about it. Just with nowadays, you can get email lists for owners. You can buy lists online, send emails, send postcards, do calling. Of course, the do not call list kind of puts a crimp on that. So you got to steer clear of that and make sure you know what you're doing with that regard. But and I heard also, speaking of that, that they're starting to crack down on that due to the spam and robocalls, the increase in that. So that's something else to look at and really be careful of.
So what it sounds like is that you have to actually put in some work, but you can find a good deal. Like if you do the things that people have been talking about forever, direct mail, or an email campaign, going out there, getting a list, kind of a wide net, going through, but you can find yourself some opportunities where you can potentially double or triple your money by putting in some hard work. I just like to point that out because there's no magic way to go out there and find good deals when everyone's looking for the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I forget to mention is I'll get these little yellow placards that you can, we buy houses type stuff, but I'll cut them in half, and I'm kind of cheap that way, but you can make them go twice as far. And all you got to do is say, we buy mobile homes, and put the phone number out there way out in the country in the middle of BFE. You know what that is. You just go out there and stick them next to a stop sign. You'd be amazed just how many calls you'll get from that, because there's a lot of mobile homes out in the country. And when you're in rural Kentucky or northern Tennessee, it's kind of the same type deal. We're about 30 minutes from a Tennessee state line here in Bowling Green. So easy to do that. Just stick that stuff everywhere. Postcards. Of course, I'm in the real estate business, so it kind of flows a little more naturally our way for the most part. But yeah, mobile homes, there's less competition. Like I said, I think they're easier to get a good deal on, because people know that when they got that in their head, they've been fed that mentality. Man, this thing is losing money. I'm upside down. It's worth, I owe more than what it's worth. So I'm just going to let it go back. I'm going to sell it, just get rid of it. I just want a quick check and get out of here. Whereas your duplexes, fourplexes, sixplexes, everybody's competing for those. It's like a feeding frenzy all the time. You're just not as likely to get that good deal because there's a lot more competition.
Exactly. So with that business, so we went over the REI business, REO business. We went over kind of the USA Homes Partners and what you're doing with that, the wholesaling, the finding the deals. Do you have a kind of specific number that you're trying to do each year, or like some goals? You said your son's also in the business with you, kind of break that down for us on like, is it the brokerage that's making the most money? Are you trying to make, your wholesaling, flipping, renting business, the most money and grow that for long term? Like, kind of explain that a little bit for us.
Well, I think any investor on the real estate side, I think for the most part, is going to be buy and hold. You want that income stream, especially as, I'm middle-aged, so I'm not too far from retirement. I'll let my son take it over. But, the brokerage has kind of been the moneymaker right now. But as the economy's starting to slow, the interest rates are rising, everything's cooling off. And that's what they want it to do. They want to slow everything down. So they're going to get their wish, unfortunately. And I hope it doesn't go beyond what they wish for. So we'll see on that. But yeah, I mean, getting the investment side set up, it's like anything, like with sales, you have certain metrics you look at. And if you want to hit a certain target of X number of dollars each year, you got to break it down and say, all right, each sale or each wholesale, we're going to say, if you want to do a wholesale, make at least $10,000 on each one. These are the metrics you got to do. You got to make 10 calls, talk to 10 people to get one deal, one contract written, and so forth. So you put those metrics in place, just like you do on sales. When you're selling, you got to talk to so many people before you get a listing. You got to talk to so many buyers before you get them to commit to work with you. The metrics are there. You just know what they are, figure them out, put them in place, put your goals out there, and then just work backwards from your numbers until you hit your goals. So any good coach or any good broker that wants their people to succeed will keep stressing those same rules to them day in, day out, week in, week out. So, and if you're serious about your business, you'll do it. And you kind of separate the pretenders from the contenders when you stress it to them and they either do it or don't do it.
Absolutely.
That is the key. James and I are about to hit the same thing on the head. Go ahead, James.
It's all numbers game, and it's all about consistency for sure. I mean, we hear this time and time again. The biggest mistake people that they can make, I think, is letting off the gas. You thought you had a really good pipeline coming in, you feel comfortable, then you stop doing the mailers because you got a little busy, and then bam, 3 months later things dry up and you're like, well, what the heck happened? It's all about consistency and numbers, and once you figure out what your goals are, you can definitely easily work backwards from all of those steps in the process and figure out, if I need this many dollars per deal, I need these many deals, I need to make this many calls, I need to have this many postcards go out. So it's definitely something that can be reverse engineered.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite sayings is, it's a relatively simple business, but it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. You got to put in the work, and that's the thing you preach to them day in, day out. So you just have to be a little bit of a cheerleader in my regard, and also lead by example. I go out there and still sell myself, so I try to be available to my folks, but I'm always stressing the metrics that we got to keep in mind. You don't, like you said, you don't let off the gas. You got to keep your nose in there and keep going. You may get frustrated. You may hit a dry spell, but you keep at it.
So how about your brokerage there? Are you looking to add any more agents in the near future, or you think you're going to fly steady with the 20 that you have?
Our motto is, I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember the guy from Lee Iacocca from the Chrysler Corporation back in the late 80s. He had a famous saying, I don't want to be the biggest, I just want to be the best. And that was his motto for Chrysler. And that's kind of the way I do on my brokerage. I'm not interested in being 100, 200, 300 agents, but I'll take a core of 20, 30, 40, 50 agents and outsell those guys, because we do full time, we're serious about it, and we're good at what we do. So we try to deliver a quality product. So you get a lot of, if you got an agent with a heartbeat and a checkbook, if you let that type of stuff come in, you're just inviting headaches. And I'd rather have quality. We interview pretty strictly, but I'm always looking to grow up. Give me the quality people, and I'll take them all day long. But there's fewer of them out there in the real estate business. Everybody wants to get their license and think they're gonna strike rich and sell 2 or 3 homes and hit a lick and then take 6 months off. And we don't really want that.
Yeah, I've seen that firsthand. It's not very hard to get a license, and like you said, it's not a complicated business. It's just hard to get the business coming in.
Right.
Getting those sales coming in, and it's a big marketing game for sure.
Yeah, you said you're with Remax. They're a quality organization. I have a lot of good things to say about them as well. That's the one franchise I have not been with. I've been with most of the others: KW, Cola Bankers, Century 21, and now Next Home. So yeah, it's pretty much very similar from one brand to the next. It all gets down to that hard work ethic and delivering a good quality product for folks and delivering good service.
Yeah. And speaking of hard work ethic and building your business, I'd really like to get down to kind of, what has motivated you over the last 20 years, going through recessions, the ups, the downs, the whole thing, to keep the brokerage going, to keep, investing long-term into real estate, and be teaching your son that as well.
Yeah, it's well, again, the REO business is kind of one of those niches where the business comes to you, and that's an appealing aspect of it. And I guess the motivation was there too, because I had 2 sons behind me, and I had my one son that's working with me. He had an outgoing personality. He's kind of like his mom, very vivacious. Everybody likes him. Good personality. I'm kind of an introvert actually, but I knew he was going to be good at it, and he is good at it. So he had a super year last year, and you kind of do stuff for your kids. I don't know if you guys are married and got kids, but that's part of the motivating factor to me. I wanted to have something to hand off to them if they wanted it, that they could work as hard as they want to and create whatever paycheck they wanted to, big or small, but it's strictly in their court rather than working for nothing wrong with a salaried position. There's a lot of pros and cons, but Sometimes I'm pretty competitive playing sports, so my son's the same way, and I have another son that likes that salary and the benefits. It's all in your personality. What are you comfortable with, and what do you want? And my one son loves to sell. He wants to go out and be the master of his own destiny as far as his paycheck. My other son is comfortable with a nice salary and benefits. So, that was part of my reason to keep it going, because I knew my son was coming on board, and I have 4 grandsons right now with a 5th baby on the way. So I'm gonna have a 5th grandchild, and it's kind of cool to set up a family business that you can kind of hand off if they want it. I've never forced my kids to do anything, play sports or nothing like that, but I like them to have choices, and that's what I kind of want to do. If you want it, it's here. If you don't, sell it, go and do something else. It doesn't matter to me.
I think that's awesome. I don't think a lot of people put that much foresight into their business and the future generations. A lot of people just live for the present, and they just want to have the money for the sake of having money. But I think building something to pass on to future generations is incredible. I mean, you're going to leave a legacy of sorts, and it's going to start with you. So that's pretty cool. What kind of obstacles do you think you're going to face? Kind of building a business that's able to be transferred down to the next generation. Are there issues that you're kind of thinking through, or things that you've kind of identified as being speed bumps along that process?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the government is always your best friend or your worst enemy in that regard. And the policies they put out, like right now with the interest rates going up, you can't really control that, but you learn to deal with it. When I was growing up in the late 70s, early 80s, interest rates were 10, 12, 15%. And they still sold and bought houses back then, but did it a different way. So you learn to adjust, and adversity teaches you to be tougher and to be more resourceful, and to still be persistent and don't give up. Another saying I have for my guys is and gals that are ages, I said, the only way you're going to fail is if you give up. If you keep putting one foot in front of the other, you will succeed. It may be a little later, it may be a little sooner, but don't quit. So some of them want to put their license in escrow when things slow down, and I said, well, do what you want, but if you'll stick with it, it will show you the way that it can still make you money if you just put these basic rules of hard work and choosing your metrics and keeping track of them. So yeah, it's a cool business. You accumulate a little bit of property along the way, and my wife and I's hope is to pass that on to them, to give them the income stream, and also for them to accumulate their own property and then compound that, and buy and sell, and become financially independent, hopefully, is the goal of everybody, I would say.
I could not agree more. And I think that is absolute perfect advice for us to segue into the next part of the show that James and I like to call the Big Four. James, take it away.
So, Greg, I want you to tell us something that you do in your life that's kind of like a financial independence cheat code, something that really propels you financially to the next level.
Well, I guess just having a franchise here, I think, really sets you apart, rather than there's a lot of mom and pop real estate brokerages across the country. But if you want to succeed and really stand out and have agents attracted to you, I think the franchise that you pick and the tools and marketing and branding and the professionalism is something I do. And I think another thing that a lot of people overlook is, for you to be successful long term, you got to take care of yourself. So I get up every morning and I have a place we go work out. It's called D1. People don't know what D1 is. It stands for Division I. That's the saying. When you're an athlete, you go to a big time school to play sports on a scholarship. You go to a D1 school. So there's a franchise here, a workout place called D1. We go there. You got a group of people that kind of makes you accountable. And if you're not there, they're texting you and saying, "Where are you, man? We missed you at the workout this morning." So that's kind of one of my little cheat codes: to stay healthy, have a group that holds you accountable in fitness and in business.
That is another great piece of advice. I absolutely love that, the accountability part. And making sure that you're keeping that body and mind in line. So that's fantastic. We call this next one resources. So are there any, books, podcasts, or people that have kind of shaped your business mindset, business journey, financial independence journey throughout your life that you think our listeners would benefit from, checking out?
Yeah, I'm like a lot of people. The one book that kind of caught my attention was Rich Dad Poor Dad, and it talked about the journey he did with his rich dad and his poor dad, and being in business for yourself and making your own way. And that's what I read that about when I was in the insurance business and decided to go out on my own. And that's kind of what prompted me to go out and just take that leap of faith and go out and do it.
Yeah, great book. We love that book. And to hear, that book affected you so much to get out there and kind of do your own thing and, ride this 20-year wave of having your own, brokerage and investing and all of that. So that's great. James, take it away. Number 3.
So, Greg, tell us where your life is at in 5 years, the future you, either personally or maybe with business. Like, what does your life situation look like in 5 years' time?
Well, that is a great question. We were just discussing that with my wife here in the last couple of days. My mom passed last week, unfortunately, and we've been kind of dealing with that, trying to get it behind us and going through the old probate process, trying to get that ball rolling. So, you talk about you work hard all your life and you want something to show for it, but at the same time, you don't want your work to be your life. So we've kind of set a goal for the next 3 to 5 years to let my son take over the business and my wife and I to travel more. Let our real estate stuff that we've been accumulating kind of, take care of us the way we've taken care of that. So, that's kind of the short-term goal, and that's the time frame here in the next 4 to 5 years. So that's a perfect question to ask, and we have been talking about that lately quite a bit.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a loss, like you experienced, to kind of put those things into perspective. And these are big life questions to work through. Developing a purpose for what you're doing today and what you want to do tomorrow. So, as sad as it might be to lose somebody sometimes, I do think that it offers a good context for life to have an appreciation of, the present and the future.
Oh yeah, it's a definite. It's like one of those moments you always remember when something really dramatic happens. You know exactly what you were doing, where you were at, what the weather was, who you were with. And, my mom and dad worked hard all their lives to provide for us like any good parents do. And you want to set that example and keep that ball rolling in the right direction for your kids and set the good example for them, like I'm sure you guys do. So, again, I hadn't talked to you whether you're married or have kids or not, but I just assume that most people, if they get married and have kids, they're going to want to do the right thing and take care of their kids because they love them. So it was, it's a tough deal, but at the end of the day, she's in a better place and she's happy because she's looking down and she's saying, "Hey, I taught my kids some good habits. They're working hard and doing the right things for their kids."
Exactly. I think that was extremely well said. Now this last one is, how do our listeners get in touch with you? If they want to reach out, ask you questions, shoot you an email or direct message and just say, "Hey, you inspired me on the podcast and I just wanted to reach out." What's the best place for our listeners to follow or reach out to you?
Yeah, just Greg, Greg at usahousepartners.com. That email comes directly to my inbox, and I've got one of those vanity phone numbers that's you kind of was still able to get those back 20 years ago. It's a little tougher nowadays, but my direct phone, I don't mind giving that out, 270-784-SOLD, SOLD. So just 270-784-SOLD or Greg at usahousepartners.com.
You need to put that phone number on a radio commercial or something. That would be perfect.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, I've been using that for years. People say, I like that. Sold. That's pretty easy to remember. And that's the whole point of it, obviously.
Exactly. I think you'll probably be able to sell that phone number at some point.
Yeah, that's a little tiny investment. I'll probably pass it off to my son if he wants it. But yeah, that's kind of a little trade secret to have memorable stuff. Part of your marketing, you got to be memorable.
I love it. I love it. All right, guys. Well, you know the drill. If you like this podcast, if you hated this podcast, leave us a review. Do something. That's what we're doing. We're out here putting out this information, having these conversations for you. So the least you could do is leave us a review. Google, Apple, Spotify. Are you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Comment on this video, and we'll catch you next time. Thank you.
See you guys.